Good morning, students. So today I shall continue with chapter number 4, which is classes and objects. The topic that I am going to discuss today is class declaration and accessing the class members. Now look at the format of declaring a class. It starts with the class keyword, followed by the name of the class. Once you declare the name of the class, give the body of the class as represented by this opening parenthesis and this closing parenthesis followed by semicolon. Inside the body of this class, you can declare the data members and the member functions. The data members denotes the properties of a class and the member functions shows the behavior of a class. Now, in object-oriented programming, you can restrict the access to these data members with the help of certain access specifiers. Now, there are three types of access specifiers in object-oriented programming. Those are private, public, and protected. Now, if the members are declared as private, they can be accessed only within the class. They cannot be accessed outside of the class. Now, if you look here, these data members are declared as private. So, these data members cannot be accessed outside of this class. However, these private data members can be accessed within its own class with the help of the member functions. So these member functions, be it private, public, or protected, they can easily access these data members because they belong to the same class. However, any element that is present outside of this class cannot access these private data members. So that's what has been said by this highlighted point. The private members cannot be accessed outside the class specification. Now, if the members are declared as public, they can be easily accessed from outside of the class. Now, if you look at these data members, they are declared as public inside this class. Since they are declared as public, these data members can be easily accessed from outside of this class. And that's what has been said in this highlighted point. The public members can be accessed outside the class specification. In addition to that, these data members can also be accessed by the member functions present inside this class. Now, these member functions, be it private, public, or protected, they can easily access these data members because they belong to the same class. Now, there is another type of access specifier known as the protected access specifier. So just like the private access specifier, the members which are declared as protected inside a class are also not accessible from outside of that class. But there is an exception to the rule. In case this class has some descendants, then the descendants of this class can easily access these protected members. So remember that members which are declared as private are not accessible outside of the class, and the members which are declared as protected are also not accessible outside of the class. However, there is an exception to the rule that if that class has some descendants, those descendants can access these protected members. Now, the descendants of a class are the child of a class. The child classes or the descendant classes inherits the properties of its parent class. You will properly understand the concept of the protected access specifier when I will start the chapter called inheritance. So as of now, just keep in mind that Just like the private access specifier, the members which are declared as protected are also not accessible outside of the class, but they can be accessed by the descendants of a class if the class has. Now that's what has been highlighted in this point. The protected members are accessed only by the descendants of the class, where the descendants are the child of a class. Now let's sum it up again. If the data members are declared as private, they are not accessible outside of this class. If the data members are declared as public, they are easily accessible outside of the class. And if the data members are declared as protected, then also they are not accessible outside of this class. However, there is one exception to the rule, that is, if this class has any descendant class or a child class, then those descendant class or the child class of this class can access these data members. And that you will understand properly when I will explain the chapter called inheritance. Now each of these data members, be it private, public or protected, they can be easily accessed by its member functions because they belong to the same class. Now look at this last point. It says by default all the class members are private. That means if you do not provide any access specifier to the members of a class, then they will be treated as private by default. Now look over here. See these data members. They are declared as private. But even if you do not specify any access specifier for these data members will be treated as private by default. Now if you look over here, these data members, they are declared as public. These data members, they are declared as protected. But I haven't set any access specifier for these data members. Okay, I haven't put the word private for these data members. Okay, I haven't specified any access specifier for these data members. So by default, these data members will be treated as private. That means if you do not set any access specifier, the data members will be treated as private, like here. So even if you do not provide this private access specifier for these data members will be treated as private only by default. Now I will be explaining you how to declare objects inside a class. The format of declaring an object inside a class is like this. At first you have to write the name of the class, okay, that is class name, followed by the name of the object or the object name. So class name followed by the object name and then a semicolon. Now take the case of this model. Here employee is the name of a class, okay, and from this class called employee I have created an object called EMP. Note that whenever you declare a class, it should be within an oval shaped figure like this, and whenever you declare an object, it should be inside a rectangular like figure like this. Now here this object EMP has been created out of this class called employee. Now all of you must be knowing that a class is just a blueprint. So here in this case the class employee is a blueprint and the object EMP is modeled on this blueprint, which is nothing but the class employee. So we can say that this object EMP is modeled on this class called employee. As a result, this object called EMP acquires the properties of this class prototype. Now this statement employee space EMP creates an object EMP out of this class prototype employee. Okay, so here employee is the class name and emp is the object name followed by semicolon. Now I shall be explaining you how to access the class members. Now look at this point. It says the syntax for accessing a class member is similar to that of accessing a member of a structure, that is, using the dot operator as shown below. So look at this highlighted statement. It starts like this: object name dot public data member name followed by semicolon. Now this clearly shows that with the help of an object of a class, you can access only the public data members, not the private and the protected data members. Again, if you look at this highlighted statement, with the help of an object of a class, you can access only the public member functions of a class. And this clearly shows that with the help of the objects of a class, you can access only the public members, be it a public data member or a public member function. With the help of objects, you can never access the private or the protected members. Now look at this example program. This program starts with a class specified by the name of the class. The name of the class is employee. This class has a body as represented by the opening parenthesis and the closing parenthesis followed by semicolon. Inside the body of this class called employee, I have declared one data member, okay, whose name is emp code, and this data member has been declared as public. And in addition to this data member, I have also declared one member function. Okay, so this is the member function. This member function has also been declared as public. Now, as I have already told that public data members and public member functions can be easily accessed outside of this class, so these members, that is emp code and member function display, can be easily accessed from outside of this class called employee. Now if you look at this class, the class ends here, okay, the class body ends here with a semicolon, and outside of this class we have the main function. So this main function is present outside of this class called employee. Now inside this main function, at first I have created an object called emp of the class called employee. Okay, so inside this main function, at first I have created an object called emp out of this class called employee. And once this object emp has been created, then using this object emp and the dot operator, I can easily access the data member emp code because it has been declared as public inside the class employee. So this is how we access the data member emp code using the dot operator, and this is done with the help of this object emp as emp code. Okay, once I have accessed the data member emp code, okay, once I have accessed the data member emp code using this object emp and the dot operator, I can set a value to this data member emp code, and here I have set the value which is equal to 20. Okay, so now the value 20 is being assigned to this data member emp code. Now look over here, again with the help of this object called emp, I am trying to access the member function display, okay, which is also declared as public. And this is done with the help of this statement emp.display. That is, with the help of this object called emp and the dot operator, I am trying to access the public member function display inside this class employee. Now the access has been granted because both these data members and the member functions are declared as public inside this class employee. So when I invoke this member function display with the help of this object emp, the control is going to shift from this portion of the main function to this portion inside this class called employee. This is because the control is always going to shift from the calling function. As this is the calling function, the control now moves to this portion of the program which is inside this class called employee. Okay, then it is expanding this function. Okay, and this is represented as the call function. Now note one thing, that the name of the calling function and the name of the call function should be exactly the same. Okay, now if you look here, the name of the calling function is also displayed and the name of the call function is also displayed. Only thing that we are doing is that we are moving the control from the calling function to the call function, where in the call function I am expanding the function, and once I expand this function I enter inside the function body. Okay, and after entering inside the function body, there is only one statement inside this, and this statement is going to be executed. Now if you see this statement, okay, using the cout operator, it directs this text within inverted comma, which is employee code, into the output. Okay, so this text employee code which is within inverted comma shall be directed to the output like this. You can see employee code over here under the output, and then what it does is that it displays the value associated with this data member called emp code. Now as we have already set the value 20 to this data member called emp code, when this object tries to access the data member emp code using the dot operator, and then it sets the value 20. So for that reason, for this data member emp code, we are going to see the value 20 in the output. So here it is, employee code 20. This gets displayed under the output. Now once this statement gets executed, the function body closes. Okay, and once the function body closes here, the control is again going to move back to the next line after the calling function, that is here. Now this statement says return 0. Now 0 here is an integer. This means that the function main is returning an integer value called 0. That's why I have set the return type for this function main as int. So int main. Now remember one thing, that the number 0 indicates a successful exit from the program. If you put any non-zero number, say 1 or 2, whatever, those numbers will indicate not a successful exit from the program. So always keep in mind that whenever you want a successful exit from a program, okay, then you need to put the value 0 after the return statement, as 0 indicates a successful exit. And for that you have to set the return type for the main function as int. So that's all about this program. So from this program, to sum it up, just keep in mind that whenever you create an object out of a class, in this case I have created the object emp out of this class employee, then here using this object emp, okay, I was able to access these data members emp code and the member function display because they are set as public. If these data member and member functions are not set as public, say they are set as private or protected, then using this object called emp, I will not be in a position to access these members. But since in this example these members are declared as public, that is the reason I was able to access these data members and member function with the help of this object called emp. Now I am going to explain you how to declare a member function inside a class. There are two ways of declaring a member function inside a class. Okay, sorry, there are two ways of declaring a member function of a class. Okay, the first way is that you can declare the member function inside the class, and the second way is that you can declare the member function outside of the class. Okay, if you are to declare the member function outside of the class, that can be done using the scope resolution operator. Okay, and that is indicated with the help of these two colons. Now this was the example that I have already discussed. If you look at this example, here is this class called employee, and I have declared this member function called display inside this class called employee. Okay, if you see here, this is the class employee, and this opening parenthesis and this closing parenthesis, this represents the body of this class called employee. And since this member function display is inside this body of this class called employee, so I can say that this member function is within the class called employee, or it is declared inside this class called employee. But there is another way of declaring this member function. You can also declare this member function outside of the class, and that can be done with the help of this scope resolution operator, or with the help of this two colon. Now look at this example. If you look at this example, you can see that here there is a class called employee, and inside the class we have public data members such as EMP code, EMP name, EMP desig, and EMP salary, and we have one member function called display. But if you look at this member function display, okay, this is present inside this class called employee. Okay, and since this class employee has a body as represented by the opening and the closing parenthesis, this function display is inside the body of this class called employee. So we can say that this member function display is inside the class of employee. Now look at this program. In this program, you can see the member function display declared inside this class called employee. But if you look at this member function display, it doesn't have its body. The body part of this member function is shown outside of this class called employee. So if this is the class called employee having its body as represented by the opening and the closing parenthesis and the semicolon, this is the member function, and these are the data members, which are EMP code, EMP name, EMP desig, and EMP salary. Now this member function is inside this class called employee, but this member function is showing some abstraction. It is showing some abstraction in the sense that this member function is hiding its implementation details. This is not showing its implementation details inside this class called employee. The implementation details of this member function is shown outside of this class called employee with the help of this scope resolution operator. See this double colon. This double colon indicates the scope resolution operator. Now see how this member function display is defined outside this class called employee. At first, you have to specify the return type of this member function display. Okay, the return type is void, so you are going to specify the return type void, followed by the name of the class. The name of the class which includes this member function display is employee. Okay, so I'm going to write the name of the class as employee over here, and then I'm going to put two colons. These two colons specifies the scope resolution operator, and this scope resolution operator is the gateway to define this member function display outside of this class called employee. Okay, so this member function display just after the scope resolution operator I have declared over here, and then I have started highlighting the implementation details of this member function called display. And if you see here clearly, these implementation details are being highlighted outside of this class called employee, because the class body ends here with a semicolon. And in this way, this class called employee is showing some abstraction by hiding the implementation details of this member function called display inside its class, and those implementation details are being shown outside of this class called employee when the function display has been expanded outside the class with the help of this scope resolution operator, that is this double colon. So this is the class which includes this member function called display, and the implementation details of this member function is declared outside of this class. Okay, so this is how the implementation details is highlighted for this member function display, and it is being highlighted outside of this class employee. So this is one of the ways to show some abstraction in the member functions, and using this I am hiding the implementation details, or else I can say I am hiding the essential features of this member function inside this class, which I have shown it somewhere else in a different location outside this class. So that's all for today, and with this I end my presentation here.